The wind didn't howl. It whispered. Ethan Brooks stood on the edge of the roof, 3 stories below. The blue water of his pool looked like a slab of cold steel under the moonlight. Sirens painted the walls of his mansion red and blue. They were getting closer. He felt nothing, just a hollow space where his heart used to be. Behind him, the glass door slid open. He didn't turn around. "Ethan, are you seriously doing this right now?" It was Chloe. Her voice was sharp, laced with champagne and annoyance. She stepped onto the gravel roof, her high heels clicking. She was wearing the diamond necklace he bought her last week. The one she said made the outfit. "I'm in the middle of a party, babe," she sighed. "Brandon's asking where the crystal is. Get down from there." Ethan finally turned his head. His eyes were dead, empty. He looked at her, but he didn't really see her. He saw a leech, parasite. "You're blocking my view," he said. His voice was a rasp. Chloe laughed. It was a cold, pretty sound. "God, you're so dramatic. First the career crashes. Now this. You're pathetic." She took a sip of her drink. "Look, if you're going to jump, do it fast. I don't want your blood ruining the pool. It's a custom job." She walked closer, close enough that he could smell Brandon's expensive cologne on her skin. "Besides," she whispered, leaning in, "your death might actually be good for me. I could get a reality show out of it. The girl who survived the fall has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" Ethan looked at the ledge. It was narrow, barely 6 inches wide. In his past life, he had begged her to stay. He had offered her his last cent. He had canceled auditions for her. He had destroyed his future for a woman who saw his death as a branding opportunity. He took a step forward, then another. The wind picked up, pushed against his chest. "Ethan." Chloe's voice lost its edge. It gained a note of panic. "Wait, don't. I was just kidding." But he wasn't listening. He was tired. So tired. He leaned forward. The world tilted. Gravity grabbed him. The last thing he heard wasn't a scream. It was the shattering of glass. His own body hitting the bottom of the pool. Darkness. Then, a gasp. Ethan woke up choking. His lungs burned. His heart hammered against his ribs like it was trying to escape. He sat up, clawing at his throat, expecting to feel cold water. But there was no water. There was silk. He was in his bed. His old bed. The one in his smaller, pre-fame condo in Studio City. He blinked. The room was dark. The air was still. No sirens. No wind. On the nightstand, his phone glowed. 11:47 p.m. He snatched it up with trembling hands. He opened the calendar app. March 14th. 3 years ago. He was back. The date hit him like a physical blow. Tomorrow was the day. The day he was supposed to skip the biggest audition of his life. The lead role in The Silent City. Because Chloe wanted him to take her to some producer's yacht party. He remembered the script. He remembered the lines. He remembered the way the director had looked at him after the reading. Like he'd seen a ghost. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. His feet touched the carpet. Solid. Real. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. He looked down. 3 stories. Not enough to kill him. Maybe, but enough to break him. A knock sounded at the bedroom door. "Ethan, baby, are you up?" Chloe's voice. Young. Smooth. Unaware of the hell she was about to unleash. Ethan didn't answer. He pressed his palm against the cold glass. He looked at the streetlights below. In his past life, he had opened that door. He had smiled. He had made her coffee. He had told her he'd reschedule the audition. This time, he stayed silent. She knocked again. "Ethan, I need you to iron my Versace dress for tomorrow. And order the caviar. Brandon's gonna be there. And I need to look perfect." Ethan closed his eyes. He saw the pool again. He felt the impact. When he opened them, they were clear, focused. He turned away from the window. He walked to his closet and pulled out a black suit. He laid it on the chair. He checked his script, memorized the first 10 pages again. He moved through the room like a ghost haunting his own past. The door handle rattled. "Ethan, open the door." He ignored her. He sat back on the bed. He looked at his reflection in the dark TV screen. The man looking back at him wasn't the lovesick fool from yesterday. This man had fallen, and he had learned how to land. He picked up his phone and sent a single text. Not to Chloe. To his agent. Confirm the audition for tomorrow. 9 a.m. Don't cancel. He hit send. Outside the door, Chloe was still talking, still demanding, still assuming he would obey. Ethan stood up. He walked to the door. He didn't open it. He leaned close to the wood and spoke. His voice low and steady. Get away from my door. Chloe. Silence. Then, her shocked voice. What did you say? Ethan rested his forehead against the door. A small, cold smile touched his lips. I said. He repeated. Get away from my door. And find your own way to the party tomorrow. I have work to do. He stepped back. He listened to her splutter, to her angry footsteps retreating down the hall. He looked at the window one more time. He wasn't looking at the drop anymore. He was looking at the horizon. Tomorrow, he would climb. And this time, no one would be there to push him off. The lobby of the casting agency smelled like expensive perfume and cheap coffee. Ethan walked in at 8:58 a.m. He was early. In his past life, he'd been late. Chloe had kept him up all night, crying about a scratch on her car. He'd shown up exhausted, his lines half memorized. Today, he was a blade. He nodded at the receptionist. No small talk. He sat down, opened his script, and began to speak the lines under his breath. His voice was a low growl, method acting. He wasn't just reading words. He was becoming the character. A man who had lost everything and found a terrifying clarity in the void. Mr. Brooks, a young assistant with a clipboard, stood in the doorway. Ethan stood. He didn't smile. He followed the assistant down a long hallway lined with framed posters of A-list stars. He passed a familiar face. Brandon Hale, the son of the studio head. Brandon was leaning against the wall, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up, sneered at Ethan, and went back to his screen. In his past life, Ethan had felt a pang of jealousy. He'd wondered what it felt like to be born into power. Today, he felt nothing. Brandon was a gnat. The assistant opened the door to Auditorium B. Inside, 3 people sat behind a long table. The director, Sarah Vane, the producer, Marcus Cole, and a casting director Ethan didn't recognize. Sarah looked up. She frowned. Ethan, you're early. I value punctuality, Ethan said. His voice was calm, flat. Marcus leaned back in his chair. You sure you're up for this? We heard you were distracted lately. Something about a party. Ethan didn't explain. He didn't apologize. He simply stepped into the center of the room. He looked at Sarah. Whenever you're ready, he said. Sarah exchanged a glance with Marcus. She nodded. Page 42. The monologue. The character has just realized his wife is gone. He's standing on the roof. Ethan closed his eyes. The wind, the ledge, the whisper of the sirens. He let the memory wash over him. Not to hurt him, to fuel him. He opened his eyes. They were empty, haunted. He began to speak. I used to think the fall would be the hardest part. He whispered. His voice echoed in the silent room. But it's not. It's the silence before the step. The moment you realize that no one is coming to save you, that the world will keep spinning, and you'll just be gone. He took a step forward. His movements were slow, deliberate. She asked me if I was serious. She laughed. She said my blood would ruin the pool. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't falling for her. I was falling because of her, because I let her weight drag me down. He paused. His jaw tightened. So I let go. And in the letting go, I found myself. Silence. Complete and total silence. Sarah Vane's pen hovered over her notepad. Her mouth was slightly open. Marcus Cole slowly put down his coffee cup. The casting director wiped a tear from her eye. Ethan didn't move. He held the character's gaze, the stare of a man who had died and come back. Finally, Sarah spoke. Her voice was hushed. Ethan, that was disturbing. Ethan supplied. No, she breathed. Real. Too real. Marcus cleared his throat. We've seen 20 guys read for this today. Most of them screamed. They cried. You just stood there, like you'd already done it. Ethan gave a slight nod. Thank you for your time. He turned and walked out. He didn't wait for feedback. He didn't need validation. As he passed Brandon in the hallway, Brandon looked up from his phone. What? You're done already? Did they kick you out? Ethan stopped. He looked at Brandon. He looked at the smugness, the entitlement, the sheer, blind ignorance. He thought about the roof, about the impact. He leaned in close to Brandon's ear. Some of us, Ethan whispered, don't need a safety net. We build our own wings. He walked away, leaving Brandon staring after him, confused. Outside, the sun was bright. Ethan squinted against the glare. He pulled out his phone. A text from Chloe. Where are you? Brandon is asking about you. He thinks you are ditching me. Fix this. Ethan stared at the message. He remembered her standing on the roof. He remembered the diamonds, the laughter. He deleted the text. Then, he blocked her number. He got into his car. A beat-up Honda Civic he'd owned 3 years ago. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't a status symbol. But it was his. He started the engine. He looked in the rearview mirror. The man looking back at him wasn't broken. He was just getting started. The film set was a pressure cooker. Ethan arrived on day 1 of shooting The Silent City with a duffel bag and a thermos of black coffee. No entourage, no drama, just the script and his focus. Sarah Vane greeted him personally. Ethan, good to see you. Ready to dive back into that headspace. I never left it. Ethan replied. He spent the morning in his trailer, running lines, not just his own, everyone's. He wanted to understand the rhythm of the entire film. He wanted to know how his character's silence affected the world around him. By lunch, the crew was buzzing. Word had spread about the audition. People were watching him, waiting for him to crack, waiting for the difficult actor to emerge. He didn't. During a break, a dispute erupted near the craft services table. Chloe had shown up, uninvited, trying to charm her way onto the set. She was arguing with a junior production assistant. Her voice shrill. I'm Ethan's girlfriend. I belong here. Get me a seat at the director's table. Ethan watched from across the lot. He didn't move. He didn't intervene. Then, a woman stepped between Chloe and the PA. She was tall, with her hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a crisp white button-down and carried a tablet. Her posture was rigid, professional. Miss Taylor, the woman said, her voice cool and precise. You are not on the call sheet. You are not a member of this production. And you are disrupting a union worksite. Please leave. Chloe sputtered. Do you know who I am? I'm a distraction. The woman cut in. She tapped her tablet. Security is on their way. If you're not gone in 60 seconds, I'll have you trespassed. Chloe's face turned purple. She looked desperately toward Ethan. Ethan met her gaze. He held it for 3 seconds. Then, he turned back to his script. Chloe let out a choked sound and stormed off, her Louboutins kicking up dust. The woman watched her go. Then, she turned and walked toward Ethan. She stopped a few feet away. Ethan Brooks. He looked up. Yes, I'm Lila Carter, unit production manager. She extended a hand. Your associate was causing a scene. I handled it. Ethan looked at her hand. He didn't shake it. Not yet. Lila raised an eyebrow. Why what? Why handle it? Most people would have enjoyed the drama, or called me to deal with it. Lila's expression didn't change, because drama costs money, and your focus is my priority. If you're distracted, the shot is ruined. If the shot is ruined, we go over budget. I don't like going over budget. Ethan studied her. No flirting, no hero worship, just logistics, efficiency, and my personal life. He asked, is that a budgetary concern? Only if it affects your call times. Lila said. Then, she paused. But for the record, a man who lets a woman like that speak for him isn't a man I'd want on my set. It wasn't a compliment. It was a professional assessment. Ethan felt something he hadn't felt since the fall. Respect. He stood up. He was 6'2". He looked down at her. Noted. He said, what's next on the schedule? Lila's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Scene 24. The rooftop sequence. We're waiting on the gaffer to fix the lighting. Ethan nodded. Tell him to hurry. I've got a meeting with my agent at 4. Lila made a note on her tablet. Understood. I'll adjust the slate. She turned to leave, then stopped. Mr. Brooks. Yes. Your performance in the audition. It was technically flawless. The subtext was impeccable. But next time, she looked back at him. Try not to scare the grips. They're superstitious. Then she was gone. Ethan watched her walk away. Efficient, unbothered, sharp. He looked back at the script. For the first time in 2 days, the lines didn't feel like a burden. They felt like a conversation. He thought about the roof, about the wind, about the way Lila Carter had stood between him and the chaos without asking for anything in return. He thought about Chloe, about the way she'd demanded, manipulated, used. 2 women, 2 choices. One had pushed him off a building. The other had handed him a schedule. Ethan closed the script. He looked up at the sky, pale, washed out blue. He was on the ground, but for the first time, he didn't feel like he was falling. He felt like he was standing. The rooftop set was hot, blazing California sun. No shade. Ethan stood at the edge of a 40-foot scaffold. Safety harness on, but it didn't matter. The height triggered the memory, the whisper of wind, the taste of fear. He welcomed it. Quiet on set. Lila's voice cut through the murmur of the crew. She stood below, near the monitor, her tablet glowing. Ethan, we need you to take 1 step closer to the edge. Sarah wants the shadow across your face. Ethan didn't acknowledge her. He just moved. 1 step. The leather of the harness creaked. He looked down, not at the pad below, at the faces, dozens of them, watching, waiting for him to slip, to show weakness. He saw Brandon Hale near the catering truck. The rich kid was laughing, sipping an iced latte, probably here to observe. For his father. Ethan's jaw tightened. He shifted his weight. The scaffold swayed. A collective gasp from the crew. Lila didn't gasp. She looked up, her hand shielding her eyes from the sun. Steady. Ethan, find your center. Her voice was calm, anchored. It wasn't a plea. It was a command. Ethan exhaled. He found the center. He let the character's despair flood his veins. But he kept his own fear locked in a box. Separate. Action. Sarah called. Ethan delivered the line. The one about the silence before the step. His voice was a razor. Low. Dead. He finished the take. The crew clapped. Not for him. For the shot. For the relief that he hadn't fallen. Cut. Perfect. Sarah beamed. Let's reset for the wide. Ethan unhooked his harness. He didn't wait for the AD. He walked to the ladder and climbed down. Halfway down, a hand reached up to help him. He looked at the hand, then at the manicured nails, the diamond bracelet. Chloe. She was back. She'd snuck past security. Again. Baby, that was amazing. She gushed. You looked so intense, so sexy. Ethan ignored her hand. He jumped the last 6 feet to the ground, landed solidly. Chloe stumbled back, her smile faltering. Ethan, what's wrong? Why aren't you talking to me? He walked past her, toward his trailer. She chased after him, her heels digging into the dirt. Ethan, stop. Brandon is a jerk. Okay, he doesn't care about me. He just wanted to mess with you. I made a mistake. Ethan kept walking. I miss you, she shouted. I miss how you used to look at me, how you used to take care of me. That stopped him. He turned slowly, looked at her, really looked. In his past life, those words would have broken him. They would have made him apologize, made him beg for forgiveness. Now, they sounded like a script he'd already read. A bad one. Take care of you, he repeated. His voice was quiet. Dangerous. Is that what you call it? Chloe's eyes welled up. Fake tears. He knew the signs now. The way her lower lip trembled on cue. The way she tilted her head just so. Yes, she whispered. You were my rock. My everything. Ethan took a step closer. She flinched. Good. I remember everything. Chloe, he said. I remember the roof. I remember the pool. I remember you telling me my blood would stain the tiles. Her face went white. What? Ethan, that was a joke. You know I'd never. No, he cut her off. You would. And you did. He looked over her shoulder. Lila was watching from 20 yards away. She wasn't intervening. She was observing, assessing. Ethan looked back at Chloe. You want me to take care of you? Fine. Chloe's face lit up with hope. Really? No. Ethan said. I want you to leave this set. I want you to delete my number. And I want you to spend the rest of your life wondering why the man who would have died for you won't even bother to spit on your grave." He turned and walked away. This time, she didn't follow. She just stood there, frozen, as the crew moved around her like she was a piece of discarded scenery. Lila fell into step beside him as they reached the trailers. "Harsh," she remarked. "Necessary," Ethan replied. Lila made a note on her tablet. "For the record, she's not on the list for tomorrow. I'll ensure she isn't a recurring line item in your budget." Ethan glanced at her. "Budget?" Lila met his gaze. "Time is money, Ethan, and you just saved yourself a fortune." She walked off, her boots clicking against the asphalt. Ethan watched her go. Then he looked back at Chloe. She was still standing there, staring at the spot where he'd been. He felt a flicker of something. Not pity, not anger, clarity. He entered his trailer, closed the door, leaned against it. The memory of the fall tried to surface. The cold, the impact. He pushed it down. He wasn't falling anymore. He was climbing, and he'd just cut the last dead weight. 6 months later, the premiere of The Silent City was a circus. Limousines, flashbulbs, screaming fans, the scent of expensive perfume and ego. Ethan stood on the red carpet in a custom Tom Ford tuxedo. He didn't smile for the cameras. He gave them the stare, the same one from the rooftop scene. Cold, intense, magnetic. Sarah Vane squeezed his arm. "You're a star, Ethan. A goddamn star." He nodded. "The film is good. It's better than good. It's a phenomenon." He scanned the crowd, past the reporters, past the fans. He saw her, Chloe. She was behind a barricade, dressed in a knockoff designer gown. She didn't have a ticket. She was just there, watching. Their eyes met across 50 feet of chaos. In her gaze, he saw it, the first crack in the facade, the dawning horror that she'd lost something irreplaceable. He looked away. Lila was at his elbow. She wasn't in a gown. She was in a sharp, charcoal gray pantsuit, professional, unbothered. "2 minutes until you're needed inside," she said. "The press is going to ask about the mystery woman rumors. Stick to the script." No comment. Ethan looked at her. "Why do you do this?" Lila raised an eyebrow. "Do what?" "This. Manage me. Protect me. You don't get a percentage of my success. I get a functioning set." Lila replied smoothly. "And a good film. Your personal life is only relevant to me if it affects the bottom line. Right now, you're the bottom line." Ethan almost smiled. "Almost. Understood," he said. They moved inside. The theater was packed. Dark. Ethan sat between Sarah and Lila. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. And there he was, larger than life, falling, dying, being reborn. During the rooftop scene, he felt Lila stiffen slightly beside him. He glanced at her. Her eyes were fixed on the screen. Her jaw was tight. She wasn't seeing the movie star. She was seeing the man she'd watched climb down that scaffold. The man who'd faced the void and walked away. After the film, the QA began. A reporter stood up. "Mr. Brooks, your performance was harrowing. Some are saying it's too real, that you channeled something dark. Care to comment?" Ethan leaned into the microphone. The room went silent. "I didn't channel darkness," he said. His voice echoed. "I channeled truth. The truth that sometimes, the only way to survive the fall is to stop looking down." Another reporter. "And the rumors about your personal life. Is there a special someone helping you stay grounded?" Ethan didn't hesitate. He turned his head, looked directly at Lila. She didn't blush, didn't look away. She just held his gaze, her expression unreadable. "There is," Ethan said, "but she's not a someone. She's a standard." The room erupted. Outside, Chloe watched the live stream on a stranger's phone. She heard the words. She saw the look in his eyes. It wasn't love. It wasn't even hate. It was indifference. She dropped the phone. Tears streamed down her face. Not for him, for herself, because she finally understood. He wasn't hers to lose anymore. He never really was. Back inside, Lila leaned over as the crowd roared. "Standard. Ha!" she murmured. Ethan stood up. The crowd cheered louder. He raised a hand, acknowledged them. Then he sat back down. High standards. He corrected softly. Yours. Lila looked at him. For a fraction of a second, the professional mask slipped. He saw it. A flicker of warmth, of understanding. Then it was gone, replaced by the cool efficiency he'd come to rely on. The after-party is in 20, she said, standing. Try not to scare any more grips. She walked away. Ethan watched her go. For the first time since he woke up on that bedroom floor, he felt something warm spread through his chest. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was the absence of falling. And it was enough. The after-party was at the Chateau Marmont. All velvet ropes and vultures. Ethan hated it. The fake smiles. The clutching hands. The way people looked at him like a commodity. He stood by the bar. Alone. Nursing a glass of water. No alcohol. Not tonight. He needed his head clear. Lila was across the room. She was in her element, talking to a cinematographer, her tablet tucked under her arm. She didn't schmooze. She networked. Precise. Efficient. Then, the atmosphere shifted. A ripple of whispers. A flash of blonde hair. Chloe. She'd gotten past the velvet rope. Somehow, she was wearing a dress that cost more than Ethan's first car. Probably bought with Brandon's money. But Brandon wasn't with her. She was alone, hunting. Her eyes scanned the room, found Ethan. She started toward him. The crowd parted. Not out of respect, out of morbid curiosity. Ethan didn't move. He took a sip of water. Waited. Ethan. She breathed when she reached him. Her eyes were red. Puffy. Please. Just 5 minutes. No. Ethan said. 5 minutes. She insisted. She reached for his arm. He stepped back. Her hand grasped air. Chloe, he said, his voice low. You're making a scene. I don't care. She hissed. Don't you get it? I'm losing you. I'm losing everything. Brandon dumped me. He said I was a consolation prize. A way to get to you. Ethan felt a stir of satisfaction. Cold. Clinical. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. He was right. Ethan said. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Don't say that. You love me. You used to love me. I used to be a fool. Ethan corrected. There's a difference. He saw Lila approaching from the corner of his eye. Calm. Measured. She didn't rush. She didn't interfere. She just moved into position, like a chess player anticipating a move. Chloe saw her too. Her face twisted. She spat. It's because of her. Isn't it? This manager. She's poisoning you against me. Lila stopped a few feet away. She didn't speak. She just watched. Observed. She's nothing. Chloe continued, her voice rising. A nobody. I was your queen. Ethan. I was the one you bled for. Ethan finally turned his head to look at Lila. Really look at her. He saw the faint shadows under her eyes from too many late nights. The calluses on her fingers from gripping her tablet too tightly. The quiet strength in her spine. She was no one's queen. She was the architect. He looked back at Chloe. You were never my queen. You were a weight. And I cut you loose. He set his water glass down on the bar. The sound was sharp. Final. Now, he said. Leave. Before I have security escort you out. Again. Chloe stared at him. Her mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Then, she crumpled. She sank to the floor. Sobbing. A broken doll in a borrowed dress. The room went silent. Ethan didn't look down at her. He looked at Lila. Lila gave a slight nod. A gesture of professional approval. Then, she pulled out her phone and texted security. Within seconds, 2 large men in black suits appeared. They lifted Chloe gently but firmly. She didn't fight. She just kept crying. Her face buried in her hands. As they carried her away, she looked back at Ethan one last time. He was already turning away, talking to the cinematographer, discussing lens flares. He didn't see her go. Lila walked up beside him. Messy, she commented. Unavoidable, Ethan replied. Security has her information. She's banned from all future premieres and industry events tied to the studio. Good. Lila made a note. Then, she hesitated. A rare thing for her. For the record, she said quietly, you handled that well. Ethan glanced at her. Did I? You didn't raise your voice. You didn't engage. You established a boundary and enforced it. She looked at him, her eyes sharp in the dim light. Most men in your position would have either caved or exploded. You did neither. It's a skill. Ethan said. No. Lila said. It's growth. She turned to leave, then stopped. She looked back at him over her shoulder. Ethan. Yes. Next time she tries to crawl back, don't give her the satisfaction of a response. Give her silence. Silence is louder than shouting. Then she was gone. Ethan stood there. The music had started again. The party resumed, but the air around him felt different, clearer. He thought about what she'd said. Silence is louder than shouting. He thought about the roof, the fall, the impact. He thought about Chloe's face as she was carried away, the utter defeat. He'd spent his past life screaming for her attention. In this life, he'd learned the power of quiet. He picked up his water glass again, drained it, then he walked out of the party. He didn't go to the after party. He didn't go to the clubs. He went home, to his penthouse, the one with the high railings. He stood on the balcony, looked out at the city lights, millions of people, billions of stories. He wasn't one of them anymore. Not really. He was separate, above. But for the first time, he didn't feel lonely. He felt still. He heard the elevator ding behind him. He didn't turn. Footsteps, quiet, confident. Lila stepped onto the balcony. She didn't speak. She just stood beside him, a respectful distance away. They stood in silence for a long time. Finally, Lila spoke. The reviews are in. You're the front runner for the Oscar. Ethan nodded. I know. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. Lila looked at him. What are you thinking about? Ethan looked at the horizon, the first hints of dawn breaking over the hills. I'm thinking, he said softly, that the view from up here is much better when you're not looking down. Lila didn't reply. She didn't need to. They just stood there, two silhouettes against the coming light. The fall was over. The climb had been worth it. 3 weeks later, the world shifted. Ethan was in rehearsals for his next film, a gritty crime drama, when his phone buzzed. Not a call, a notification from a gossip app. Breaking, Ethan Brooks' secret baby. Sources say assistant claims paternity. Below the headline was a photo, grainy, clearly taken through a window. It showed Chloe, her face partially hidden, leaving a medical clinic. Her hand rested on a belly that looked suspiciously padded. Ethan's blood ran cold, not from shock, from a cold, calculated rage. He opened the article. The details were vague. Anonymous sources, close friends, of Chloe claiming she'd been pregnant during their relationship, claiming Ethan refused to acknowledge the child. It was a lie, a blatant, desperate lie. In his past life, he would have panicked, called his lawyer, issued a frantic denial, fed the beast. This time, he did nothing. He closed the app, handed the phone to his assistant. Ignore it, he said. The assistant blinked. Sir, it's everywhere. TMZ, page 6. Twitter is exploding. Then let it explode. Ethan said. He turned back to the director. Shall we continue? The director, a veteran named Ray Mendez, grinned. Kid, you've got bigger balls than I thought. Most actors would be canceling rehearsals and lawyering up. I don't negotiate with terrorists, Ethan said. News of the scandal reached Lila within the hour. She burst into the rehearsal room, her tablet glowing like a weapon. Ethan, we need to talk. Now. He followed her into a vacant office. She locked the door. Explain, she said, her voice sharp. There's nothing to explain. Ethan said. It's a lie, obviously. Lila snapped. But the narrative is spreading. Brandon's camp is amplifying it. They want to paint you as a deadbeat to distract from Chloe's meltdown. We need a counter-narrative. Paternity test. A timeline. Something. Ethan walked to the window, looked down at the street below. Tiny cars. Tiny people. No, he said. Lila stared at him. No, Ethan. This is career suicide. Endorsements will drop. The Oscar campaign will be tainted. They won't. Ethan said calmly. Because the public is smarter than you think. And because I have a plan. He turned to face her. Chloe is predictable. She wants a reaction. She wants me to scream, to fight, to acknowledge her existence. So what do? We do nothing, Ethan said. We let her hang herself. Lila's eyes narrowed. That's a risk. It's a calculated one. Ethan corrected. She'll escalate. She always does. And when she does, we'll have the truth ready. Not before. He walked over to her, looked down at her tablet. The screen showed a dozen articles, all screaming variations of the same lie. Trust me, Lila, he said. His voice was low, steady. She's already lost. She just doesn't know it yet. Lila held his gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Fine, but if this backfires, it won't, Ethan said. That evening, the escalation came. Chloe posted a video on her newly created Instagram account. She was crying, real tears this time. She held up a sonogram photo. Ethan, she sobbed, our baby deserves to know his father. Please, don't do this. The internet went into a frenzy. Hashtag Ethan's baby trended worldwide. Ethan watched the video once. Then, he turned off his phone. He went to the gym, lifted weights, ran 5 miles. When he returned to his penthouse, Lila was waiting. She looked exhausted. Well, she asked. Ethan poured himself a glass of water. She's desperate. She's effective. Lila countered. The studio is getting nervous. They're suggesting a private settlement. Pay her to go away. Ethan set the glass down. The clink of glass on marble was loud in the silence. No, he said. No money. No acknowledgement. No settlement. Ethan, she wants to play the victim. He interrupted. Fine, let her. But I'm not going to give her the satisfaction of a response. Not yet. He walked to the balcony doors, looked out at the city, the same city that had watched him fall. When the time is right, he said softly, I'll show them all exactly who she is. Not with words, with proof. Lila was silent for a long time. Then, she sighed. You're playing a dangerous game. I'm not playing, Ethan said. I'm finishing what she started. He turned back to her. Do you trust me? Lila looked at him, really looked at him, past the star, past the scandal, to the man who'd stood on a scaffold and found his center. Yes, she said simply. Then wait, Ethan said, and watch. The next morning, the headlines were worse, but Ethan didn't read them. He went to set, delivered a flawless performance, ignored the whispers, ignored the stares. That night, he stood on his balcony again. Lila joined him. They didn't talk about the scandal. They talked about the film, the lighting, the blocking, normal things, human things. And as they stood there, the city humming below them, Ethan realized something. Chloe's lies couldn't touch him. Not here. Not in the space he'd built. Not with this woman at his side. The fall had been real, but the climb was just beginning. And this time, he wasn't climbing alone. The scandal burned for 10 days. 10 days of lies. 10 days of Chloe's tear-stained face on every screen. 10 days of Ethan's name dragged through the mud. He said nothing. He did nothing. He worked. The studio panicked. His agent begged. His publicist threatened to quit. Ethan just waited. On the 11th day, Lila walked into his trailer. She didn't knock. She never did anymore. She held her tablet. Her face was stone, but her eyes were bright, sharp. It's time, she said. Ethan looked up from his script. She made her move. She's holding a press conference. Live. In 1 hour. She's going to tell the truth about the pregnancy. She's invited every major outlet. Ethan nodded. Slowly, deliberately, and our response. Lila tapped her tablet. We released the audio. Simultaneously, timed to the exact moment she starts speaking. Audio? Ethan asked. Lila's lips curved. Not a smile. A blade. The roof. Ethan. The night before you woke up. I found a recording. A backup from the security system. The audio wasn't wiped. Just archived. Ethan went very still. He remembered that night. The wind. The sirens. Chloe's voice. Make sure it's a clean landing so you don't ruin the pool. His heart didn't race. It settled. Like a ship finding its harbor after a storm. Play it, he said. Lila pressed a button. Chloe's voice filled the small trailer. Young. Cruel. Drunk. Don't do it, Ethan. But if you do, Make sure it's a clean landing so you don't ruin the pool. It's a custom job. A pause. Then her laugh. Cold. Pretty. Besides, your death might actually be good for me. I could get a reality show out of it. The girl who survived the fall has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Silence in the trailer. Then, the sound of the wind, the whisper of fabric, the scuff of a shoe on gravel. And then, nothing, just the distant wail of sirens. Ethan closed his eyes. He didn't hear the wind this time. He heard the truth. When he opened them, Lila was watching him, not with pity, with respect. She didn't know the security mic was live. Lila said quietly, "She thought she was alone. She thought she was safe. She thought I was disposable. She was wrong." Ethan corrected. Ethan stood. He walked to the mirror, looked at himself. The man staring back was not the one on that roof. This man was whole, hardened, unbreakable. "Schedule the release," he said. "Global. Every platform. No commentary. Just the audio. Let her words bury her." Lila nodded. Her fingers flew across the tablet. "Done. It'll hit the feeds in 15 minutes. Right as she steps up to the podium. Ethan turned away from the mirror. "I want to watch." They moved to the small sofa. Lila pulled up a live stream on her tablet. The feed showed a crowded hotel ballroom. Chloe stood at a podium draped in microphones. She wore a pale blue dress. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a victim. She looked like a liar. The countdown ticked in the corner of the screen. 10, 9, 8. Chloe adjusted the microphone. She took a deep breath. She opened her mouth to speak. The feed cut. For 1 second, the screen went black. Then, it switched to a simple graphic. White text on a black background. Audio evidence. The truth. Then, the recording played. Chloe's voice, crystal clear, echoing through the ballroom, through millions of phones, through the world. "Don't do it, Ethan." The camera panned to Chloe's face. The color drained from her skin. Her eyes widened. Her perfectly glossed lips parted in a soundless scream. She stumbled back from the podium. Her hands flew to her mouth. The recording continued. "Make sure it's a clean landing." She shook her head. Tears, real ones, streamed down her face. She looked around wildly, like a trapped animal. The journalists in the room erupted, shouting questions, cameras flashing. Chloe bolted. She ran off the stage, her high heels slipping on the polished floor. She disappeared behind a curtain. The recording played one last line. "Has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" Then, silence. The live stream cut back to the graphic. The text remained on the screen for 10 seconds. Then, it vanished. No statement from Ethan. No interview. No explanation. Just the truth. Lila muted the tablet. She looked at Ethan. "It's done." Ethan nodded. He felt empty, but in a good way, like a vessel that had been purged of poison. "How long until the backlash?" he asked. "Already happening," Lila said. She refreshed her feed. Twitter is shredding her. #DiggerChloe is trending. The studio just issued a statement distancing themselves. Brandon's family released a statement condemning her callous disregard for human life. Ethan stood up. He walked to the door of the trailer. He opened it. The crew outside was silent. They'd all heard it. They were all watching him. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He just walked past them, toward his car. Lila fell into step beside him. "Where are you going?" "Home," Ethan said. "But the film." "I'm done for the day," Ethan said. "Send my apologies to Ray. Tell him I'll be in early tomorrow." Lila nodded. She opened the car door for him. A small gesture, one he'd never asked for, but one she gave anyway. As he slid into the seat, she leaned down. "Ethan." "Yes." "Well played." He looked up at her. For a moment, the professional mask slipped completely. He saw it. Pride. In him. Not in the star. In the man. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for finding the recording." Lila straightened. The mask slid back into place. "It was in the budget," she said, but her eyes softened. Just for a second. She closed the door. Ethan watched her walk away. Then, he looked out the window, at the city, at the sky, at the endless, impossible height of it all. He wasn't falling. He wasn't even climbing. He was flying. And the woman who'd once pushed him off a roof, she was already forgotten. The fallout was swift, brutal, absolute. Chloe Taylor ceased to exist. Not literally, but her name became a curse word. Punchline. Cautionary tale. Her Instagram was deleted. Her phone number was disconnected. Her parents changed theirs. Brandon Hale's family issued a cease and desist. They threatened to sue her for defamation if she ever contacted their son again. The studio that had hired her for a minor role dropped her immediately. The press release was savage. It cited moral turpitude and a fundamental lack of professional integrity. Even the gossip blogs turned on her. The same sites that had amplified her lies now dissected her cruelty. They played the audio on loop. They analyzed her facial expressions. They labeled her a psychopath. Monster. Ethan didn't read any of it. He didn't need to. He saw the results in the silence. The way people looked at him now, not with suspicion, but with a grim, newfound respect. The way his phone stopped buzzing with crisis calls. The way his agent stopped sweating every time they spoke. He was clean, untouchable. Lila managed it all. She filtered the noise. She handled the inquiries. She protected his peace with a ferocity that bordered on terrifying. One afternoon, a week after the audio dropped, she walked into his penthouse. No appointment. She had a key now. Another unspoken change. She found him on the balcony, reading a script. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "You have a meeting with Sarah Vane tomorrow," she said. "She wants to discuss the Oscar campaign strategy." "Cancel it," Ethan said without looking up. Lila paused. "Cancel it. Ethan, this is important. The momentum is." "I know what it is." Ethan interrupted. He set the script down, looked at her. "I'm not doing a campaign." Lila frowned. "You have to. It's expected. It's how the game is played." "I don't play games anymore." "Lila," Ethan said, "I let the work speak. If the Academy wants to reward the performance, fine. If not, I'll do another film, and another, and another. I don't need a committee to validate my worth." Lila stared at him. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Understood. I'll tell Sarah you're focusing on the craft." She turned to leave. "Lila," Ethan called. She stopped. "Stay," he said. "Have dinner with me." It wasn't a request. It wasn't a demand. It was an invitation, the first he'd ever extended. Lila looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the man who'd conquered Hollywood without compromising a single principle. The man who'd turned a lie into a funeral pyre for his past. She saw the man who'd asked her to stay, not as a manager, as a partner. "All right," she said, "but I'm cooking. Your kitchen is a disaster." Ethan almost smiled. Almost. Deal. They ate on the balcony. Simple food. Grilled chicken, salad, water. No pretense. No performance. They talked about the film, the lighting, the sound design, the way the grip had almost dropped a sandbag on Ethan's head during the climactic scene. They didn't talk about Chloe. They didn't talk about the scandal. They didn't talk about the Oscars. They talked about work, about life, about the quiet moments between the chaos. As the sky turned from purple to deep blue, Lila leaned back in her chair. She looked out at the city lights. "It's quiet up here," she murmured. "Too quiet?" Ethan asked. It was a private joke now. Their joke. Lila turned her head, looked at him. Her eyes were soft in the fading light. "No," she said. Finally quiet. Ethan reached across the table. He didn't touch her hand. Not yet. He just rested his fingers near hers, close enough to feel the heat. Lila didn't pull away. She didn't move closer. She just let the silence stretch between them. Comfortable, warm. Later, as she was leaving, she paused at the door. "Ethan." "Yes, thank you," she said, "for trusting me with the recording." He looked at her. "You didn't just manage me, Lila. You anchored me." Lila held his gaze. Then, she nodded. "Once, get some rest. We start the next film in 3 weeks." She left. Ethan stood in the doorway. He listened to the elevator ding, to the doors slide shut, to the silence return. He walked back to the balcony. He looked down at the street below, so far away, so insignificant. He wasn't looking at the drop anymore. He was looking at the sky, and for the first time since he'd drawn his first breath in this new life, he didn't feel the ghost of the fall. He felt the promise of the flight. Oscar night. The Dolby Theater was a furnace of flashbulbs and expectation. Limousines disgorged stars in sequins and tuxedos. Reporters screamed names. Fans screamed louder. Ethan arrived alone. No date, no entourage, just a driver who opened his door and a path that parted for him like the Red Sea. He wore a midnight blue tuxedo. Simple, impeccable. His hair was swept back, revealing the sharp angles of a face that had become synonymous with intensity. He didn't smile for the photographers. He didn't wave. He gave them the stare, the one that had haunted screens for months, the one that said he'd seen the bottom of the abyss and climbed back. Ethan, over here, Mr. Brooks, how does it feel to be the frontrunner? Any comments on the Chloe Taylor situation? He ignored them all. He walked the gauntlet with the detached calm of a man who'd already lived through his worst nightmare. The carpet was just a longer, shinier version of the scaffold he'd stood on years ago. Inside, the theater was a cathedral of ego. He found his seat, front row, center, the best seat in the house. Sarah Vane leaned over, her diamonds catching the low light. Nervous, Ethan shook his head. No, you should be, she whispered. Best actor is a lock. The town forgave you the moment that audio dropped. Hell, they rewarded you for it. You became a symbol. Ethan, the man who survived his own destruction. Ethan looked at the stage, the empty podium, the golden statue waiting under a cloth. He wasn't thinking about the award. He was thinking about the roof, the wind, the moment before the step. He was thinking about how far he'd come. Lila was somewhere in the press box. She'd refused a seat in the auditorium. Too distracting. She'd said that morning over black coffee, I'll be working, monitoring the feeds, making sure no one tries a last-minute ambush. An ambush? Ethan had asked, arching an eyebrow. Chloe's nowhere to be found. Lila had replied, her eyes scanning her tablet, which means she's somewhere. And that's more dangerous than her being everywhere. Ethan hadn't argued. Lila was right. Silence was often the loudest scream. The lights dimmed. The ceremony began. Monologues, songs, montages. Ethan sat still, a statue among fidgeting celebrities. He accepted a glass of water when offered, declined champagne. He was here for the work, not the party. Then, the category, Best Actor, the presenter, a legendary actress whose career spanned 5 decades, took the stage. The room fell silent. Even the rustle of programs ceased. Nominees for Best Actor. Names flashed on the screen. Clips played. Powerful performances. Emotional speeches. All of them worthy. Then, Ethan's clip. The rooftop scene. The moment he'd channeled the fall. The screen showed him standing at the edge. His face a mask of terrifying peace. The audience held its breath. And the winner is. The envelope was opened. A pause. A heartbeat. Ethan Brooks. The silent city. The room erupted. Not just applause. A standing ovation. A roar of approval that seemed to shake the foundations of the theater. Ethan stood. Slowly. Deliberately. He didn't pump his fist. He didn't cry. He simply acknowledged the room with a nod that was both humble and regal. He walked to the stage. The climb felt symbolic. Each step a rejection of the fall. He took the statue. Heavy. Cold. Real. He stepped to the microphone. The roar died down, replaced by an expectant hush. He looked out at the sea of faces, hundreds of the most powerful people in the world, hanging on his silence. He saw Sarah Vane, wiping a tear. He saw his agent, beaming. He scanned the press box until he found her. Lila Carter, standing in the shadows, her tablet lowered, her eyes fixed on him. He began to speak. His voice was low, carried easily through the vast room. I'm not going to thank the Academy, he said. A ripple of surprise went through the crowd. Not because I'm ungrateful, but because this award doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the man I was 3 years ago. The man who stood on a roof and realized that the only way to survive was to stop looking down. He paused. Let the words settle. People talk about the fall. He continued. They talk about the impact. They talk about the scars. But no one talks about the climb. The daily, grinding effort to rebuild a soul you thought was shattered. To learn that your worth isn't measured by who stays, but by who you become when everyone leaves. He looked directly at the press box. At Lila. I was told that silence is emptiness. I was told that love is weakness. I was told that the ground is a place for broken things. I learned that silence is strength. That love, when it's real, is the only thing that can keep you anchored when the world tries to blow you away. And that the ground is where you build your kingdom. He raised the Oscar. To the architects, he said simply, to the ones who don't ask for credit, to the ones who hold the lines steady while the rest of us fly, to the ones who remind us that the view is meaningless if you have no one to share it with. He lowered the statue. His gaze never left Lila's. Thank you, he said, not to the crowd, to her. Then, he stepped back from the microphone. He didn't wait for the applause to resume. He walked off the stage, the Oscar heavy in his hand, his path clear. As he exited the stage left wing, Lila was waiting. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't clapping. She just stood there, her tablet under her arm, her posture straight. He stopped in front of her. She looked at the Oscar, then at him. Well, she said, her voice dry. At least it matches the decor. A ghost of a smile touched Ethan's lips, the first real smile he'd allowed himself all night. Lila Carter, he said, his voice rough with emotion he rarely showed. Will you help me carry this upstairs? Lila looked at the heavy statue. Then, without a word, she reached out and took it from his hand. She didn't complain about the weight. She didn't make a fuss. She just turned and started walking toward the exit, the golden man tucked securely under her arm. Ethan followed. Behind them, the theater erupted again, but neither of them looked back. They were done with the noise. They were going home. The after-Oscar party was a blur of champagne and backslaps. Ethan stayed for 30 minutes, long enough to satisfy the studio, long enough for Sarah Vane to drunkenly declare him the future of cinema. Then, he left. Lila drove. She'd traded her pantsuit for a simple black dress. She looked softer, but her hands on the wheel were steady. They didn't go to the Chateau Marmont. They didn't go to the exclusive clubs in the hills. They went to Ethan's penthouse. The elevator ride-up was silent, not awkward, comfortable. The air hummed with unspoken things. Inside, Ethan poured 2 glasses of water. He handed one to Lila. She took it, her fingers brushing his. A spark, not electric, deep, settled. They stood on the balcony. The city sprawled below, a glittering tapestry of light and shadow. The Oscar sat on the glass table between them, catching the moonlight. It's over, Lila said finally. Ethan looked at her. No, he corrected. It's just beginning. She turned to him. The scandal is dead. Chloe is a ghost. Your career is unimpeachable. You have everything you wanted. Almost everything, Ethan said. Lila's breath caught. Just slightly. Ethan reached out. He didn't touch her face. He traced the line of her jaw with his eyes. I spent my first life falling for a lie, he said. I spent my second life climbing toward a truth. I thought the truth was success, power, solitude. He stepped closer, close enough to feel her warmth. I was wrong. Lila didn't move, didn't speak. She just watched him, her eyes dark and unreadable in the moonlight. The truth, Ethan whispered, is you. He leaned in, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met, not a kiss of passion, a kiss of recognition, of 2 souls who had found each other in the wreckage and built something indestructible. When they parted, Lila rested her forehead against his. Ethan, she murmured, I'm not a prize. I'm not a consolation. I'm not. You're the anchor. Ethan finished. I know. And I'm not looking for a trophy. Lila, I'm looking for a partner. Someone who sees the man behind the statue. Someone who isn't blinded by the shine. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. I love you, he said. Simple, true. Not because you saved me, but because you saw me when I was unsavable. And you stayed. Lila's composure finally cracked. A single tear escaped, tracking down her cheek. Ethan caught it with his thumb. I love you too, she whispered, but if you ever jump off a roof again, I'm not catching you. I'll build a higher one. Ethan laughed. A real laugh, deep and resonant. The first one that didn't taste like ash. They stood there as the moon climbed higher, as the city lights dimmed, as the ghosts of the past faded into the dawn. Later, they moved inside. They didn't need the balcony anymore. The height wasn't in the view. It was in the foundation. Ethan woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through the windows. Lila was beside him, her hair spread across the pillow, her breathing slow and even. He didn't feel the urge to check his phone. He didn't feel the phantom sensation of falling. He didn't feel the weight of the Oscar in the other room. He felt whole. He got out of bed quietly, walked to the living room, picked up the Oscar. He looked at it for a long moment. Then, he placed it on a high shelf, not hidden, just contextualized. He walked back to the bedroom. Lila was awake, propped up on one elbow, watching him. Coffee, he asked. Black, she said. 2 sugars. He nodded, started toward the kitchen. Ethan, she called softly. He turned. She smiled, a real smile, one that reached her eyes. The view from up here is better when you're not looking at it alone. Ethan's chest tightened, with happiness, with peace, with the profound, unshakable knowledge that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Then I guess I'll have to get used to sharing the balcony, he said. He walked into the kitchen. The smell of brewing coffee filled the air. Normal, domestic, perfect. He wasn't a star. He wasn't a survivor. He wasn't a man defined by a fall. He was a man waking up next to the woman he loved, in a home he'd built with his own 2 hands, on solid ground that no one could ever take away from him. The climb was over. This was the summit. 5 years later, the house was in Malibu, not a mansion, a home, glass and wood, perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. The ocean stretched endlessly, a blue horizon that matched the one in his eyes. Ethan stood in the kitchen. He was making pancakes, chocolate chips, Lila's favorite. She walked in, her hair messy, her feet bare. She was carrying a tablet, but it was closed. She set it on the island and wrapped her arms around his waist from behind. Morning, she mumbled into his back. Morning, Ethan replied. He flipped a pancake. It landed perfectly. Lila rested her chin on his shoulder. What's the agenda today? Pancakes, Ethan said. Then, the beach. Then, maybe, nothing. Nothing sounds perfect. Lila sighed. They'd both slowed down. Ethan still acted, but selectively, only roles that challenged him. Lila still produced, but only projects she believed in. They'd built a life that prioritized peace over publicity. The doorbell rang. Ethan didn't move. Neither did Lila. They had a house manager for a reason. A minute later, the manager appeared. Mr. Brooks, there's a woman here. She says it's urgent. She's asking to see you. She looks unwell. Ethan and Lila exchanged a glance. A silent communication honed over 5 years. Name? Ethan asked. She wouldn't give one. The manager said, but she's blonde. Early 30s. Looks like she hasn't slept in a week. Ethan turned off the stove. He wiped his hands on a towel. Lila released him, but her hand brushed his arm. A silent question. Do you want me to handle this? Ethan shook his head. I'll handle it. He walked to the foyer. The manager opened the door. Chloe stood on the threshold. She was a ghost of the woman he'd known. Her clothes were rumpled. Her face was gaunt. Her eyes were sunken, haunted by a darkness that had nothing to do with mascara. She looked at him, and for a moment, the mask of indifference Ethan had worn for years slipped. He didn't feel hatred. He didn't feel triumph. He felt pity. Ethan, she whispered. Her voice was a rasp. Please, I needed to see you, to tell you I'm sorry. Ethan said nothing. He simply looked at her, let her see the man she'd lost, the man who'd built an empire on the ruins of her betrayal. I lost everything, she choked out. Tears streamed down her face. My career, my reputation. Brandon, he married someone else, a producer's daughter. I'm nothing. I'm no one. And it's all because of you. Ethan's expression didn't change. He waited. I thought, if I could just talk to you. She sobbed. If I could just explain. It was a mistake. I was young. I was stupid. I didn't know what I had. She took a step forward. I still love you, Ethan. I never stopped. We could. No, Ethan said. One word. Quiet. Final. Chloe froze. No, you didn't lose everything because of me, Ethan said. His voice was calm, detached, like he was discussing the weather. You lost everything because you never valued anything. Not my love. Not my career. Not the truth. You saw the world as a resource to be mined, not a gift to be cherished. He looked at her, really looked at her, saw the emptiness, the void she'd tried to fill with greed and cruelty. You didn't make a mistake, Chloe, he said. You made a choice, and you're still making it. You're standing here, not because you're sorry, but because you want me to validate your pain, to tell you that you mattered, that you still matter. He shook his head. You don't. Not to me. Not anymore. He stepped back. Go home, Chloe, wherever that is, and don't come back. He nodded to the manager. The door began to close. Chloe lunged forward, her hand shooting out to stop it. Ethan, please, don't do this. Don't leave me like this. The door paused. Ethan looked at her one last time. I'm not leaving you, he said softly. I'm already gone. You're the one who's still stuck on the roof. He pushed the door gently, clicked shut. He stood there for a moment, listening to her muffled sobs on the other side, listening to the wind off the ocean, listening to the silence of a life he'd chosen. Then, he turned and walked back to the kitchen. Lila was sitting at the island. She'd poured 2 cups of coffee. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. She just held out a mug. Ethan took it. He sat down beside her. He looked out the window at the endless blue. Was it hard? Lila asked quietly. Ethan thought about it. About the roof, the fall, the climb, the woman who'd pushed him and the woman who'd anchored him. No, he said. It was just her. Lila nodded. She reached over and took his hand. Her fingers intertwined with his. Warm, real, present. They sat in silence, drinking coffee, watching the waves. The past was a closed door. The future was an open horizon. And the ground beneath them, solid, unshakable. Home. The end.